When a factory worker saves a millionaire from a fatal accident and then doesn't care, he discovers something his money could never buy: honesty. But when his psychopathic ex decides to destroy the woman who stole her place, love will have to prove stronger than revenge, social class, and past traumas. Enjoy the story. The construction site siren echoed through the site like a cry of alarm. Dust rose in dense clouds as men in helmets rushed toward the central structure. At the top of the 10th floor, a steel beam swayed precariously, held only by a cable already broken in half. Ethan Carvalho, in an impeccable Italian suit and shoes that cost more than his workers' monthly wages, stood directly beneath it, staring at the drawing board with the architectural plans. He didn't hear the shouts. He didn't see the shadow growing over his head, but Maya saw. Her feet were already moving before her brain had even processed the decision. She sped across the still damp concrete floor like lightning, her compact, muscular body propelling itself forward with force. Ethan looked up only at the last second, just enough time to see a woman in a yellow helmet and dirty overalls lunge at him with the force of a linebacker. The impact threw them both 3 feet to the side. The beam fell exactly where Ethan had been a second before, slamming into the ground with a metallic crash that shook the entire structure. Silence. Ethan lay on his back, the air expelled from his lungs. Above him, propped up on one elbow, Maya stared at him with irritated brown eyes. "Are you deaf or just an idiot?" she asked, breathless. Ethan blinked, still processing that he was alive. What? The siren, the screams. You were standing there like a decorative lamppost. Maya stood up, brushing the dust off her overalls. She held out her hand to him with an impatient sigh. "Come on, boss. Get up before something else falls." He accepted her hand, feeling the surprising strength in her grip. When he stood up, he realized she was at least 6 inches shorter than him, but seemed to occupy more space. There was something in the way she moved, in the raw confidence of each gesture. "You saved my life," Ethan said, still stunned. "Someone had to do it." Maya was already walking away, gesturing to the other workers. "Isolate this area. I want 2 teams checking all the cables before we get back to work." "Wait!" Ethan followed her, stumbling over a pile of tools. "I need to thank you. Let me, I don't know, take you to dinner? Anything?" Maya stopped, turned slowly, and stared at him with an expression that mixed amusement and exasperation. "Seriously? You almost died 30 seconds ago, and you're thinking about dinner?" "I just want to express my gratitude properly." "Then thank me by paying on time and keeping this place safe." She patted him on the shoulder, as she would a well-meaning dog. "Now get off my construction site before I have to rescue you again." And she simply left, leaving Ethan Carvalho, a man accustomed to being listened to and obeyed, standing in the middle of the construction site like a rejected teenager. Ethan couldn't get Maya out of his head for the next 3 days. He found himself returning to the construction site more often than necessary, always with some excuse about safety inspections or meetings with engineers. In truth, he just wanted to see her again. She was unlike any woman he had ever met. In his world of charity events and corporate dinners, women were perfumed, delicate, strategic. Maya was direct, sometimes rude, and seemed completely indifferent to the fact that he was Ethan Carvalho, CEO of Carvalho Construction, a $200 million empire he had built after inheriting a bankrupt company from his father. On Thursday, he found her welding a metal structure on the ground floor. Sparks flew around her like fireworks. Ethan waited for her to finish, watching the precision of her movements. When she lifted her welding mask, he found him standing there like an idiot. "You again?" Maya turned off the blowtorch. "Don't you have a company to run?" "I do, but I also owe you something." "I already told you, you don't owe me anything." "Let me at least buy you a coffee. A coffee, Maya. It's not a marriage proposal." She paused, studying him with those eyes that seemed to see through facades. "How do you know my name?" "It's on your badge." She crossed her arms. A coffee shop. But nothing fancy. There's a dive bar on the corner. Meet me there at 6. And before he could answer, she already had her mask back on, the sparks starting again. The dive bar was everything that the restaurants Ethan frequented weren't. Small, noisy, with uncomfortable chairs, and a mixed smell of strong coffee and fried food. He arrived 5 minutes late and found Maya already seated, still in her overalls, reading something on her cell phone. "I thought you were going to stand me up," she said without looking up. "Transit." "Of course." She finally looked at him, and a slight smile touched her lips. "Sit down. You look like a lost penguin here." Ethan sat down awkwardly. The waiter brought 2 coffees without ordering, apparently knowing Maya. She took a sip and sighed contentedly. "So," she began, "which one is the real one? Do you want to thank me? Or are you just bored with the rich girls in your world?" Her frankness was disarming. "Maybe both." "Honest. I like that." Maya placed the cup on the table. "But I'll save you time and effort. I'm not the kind of girl you take to meet your mom. I don't wear heels, I don't know which fork to use first, and I have 0 patience for games. I didn't ask for any of those things." "Not yet." She leaned forward. "Look, Ethan, you seem like a nice guy, really, but men like you don't know what you want. You see a different girl and find her interesting until the novelty wears off. Then you go back to what's familiar. You draw a lot of conclusions about people you've just met." "No." His voice grew colder, more distant. "I learned to read between the lines, the hard way." There was pain there, Ethan realized, hidden beneath an armor of sarcasm and indifference. Someone hurt you. Maya laughed, but there was no humor in the sound. "Original. Next barroom theory?" "It's not theory. I recognize it." Ethan held his own cup, looking at the dark liquid. "My father hurt me. Not in the way you're thinking. He simply was never there. He built an empire and forgot he had a son. When he died, he left me a company drowning in debt and a legacy of broken relationships. I've spent the last 8 years fixing what he broke. So, yes, I recognize pain when I see it." The silence between them had changed in quality. Maya studied him with renewed attention, as if she were truly seeing him for the first time. "I'm sorry," she said finally, more softly. "That was difficult." "And it still is," Ethan shrugged. "But we keep going, don't we? Because giving up would be letting the past win." Maya bit her lip, a surprisingly vulnerable gesture. "His name was Raphael. I met him 4 years ago. I was starting out in construction, the only woman on the team. Everyone treated me like a joke, except him. Raphael was an engineer, handsome, charming. He made me feel special." She paused, her fingers gripping the cup. "I found out he was married 6 months later. His wife showed up at the construction site, pregnant. He looked at me and said I was just a fling, that a woman like me shouldn't be taken seriously." "What a son of a—" Ethan muttered, without finishing calling Raphael what he deserved. "Yes." Maya smiled bitterly. "So I learned my lesson. I don't trust promises. I don't believe in happy endings. And I definitely don't associate with millionaire bosses who show up out of nowhere wanting to pay for coffee." "What if I want nothing more than to get to know you?" Ethan asked. "No promises, no expectations, just this. Honest conversations and bad coffee." She stared at him for a long moment. "Why?" "Because you're the first person in years who talks to me like I'm just a person, not a CEO, not a last name, not a bank account. You literally saved me and then treated me like some random idiot. It was—" He searched for the right word. "Liberating." Maya laughed, this time for real, a sound that lit up her whole face. "You're crazy." "Probably." "Okay." She raised her cup in a rye toast. "Honest conversations and bad coffee. But the first time you disappoint me, I'm disappearing. No drama, no explanations. I'll just vanish." "Fair." They clinked cups, sealing a strange and fragile agreement. Ethan didn't know it yet, but that moment in a cheap bar would change his life forever. The following weeks established a rhythm. Ethan began to appear on the construction site not as the distant CEO, but as someone genuinely interested in learning. Maya, initially skeptical, began to accept his presence. She taught him how to read structural blueprints, explained the difference between types of concrete, let him carry tools, and feel the real weight of the work his name represented. "You have a lot of money," Maya said one afternoon while they were organizing materials in the warehouse, "but you have no idea how things really work, do you? I know how to run the company. Knowing how to sign papers isn't the same as understanding what you're building." She tossed him a hard hat. "Tomorrow, you're going up with the structural team. I want you to see what it's like to be 40 meters off the ground, depending on the quality of the materials you approved, in an air-conditioned room. I'm not afraid of heights. It's not about fear. It's about respect." His eyes were serious. "Every decision you make affects real lives. Forget about that, and you become your father." The comparison stung, but Ethan knew it was necessary. The next day he climbed. The wind at the top was stronger than he had imagined, the ground below dangerously distant. He saw men working with precision, relying on equipment and on each other. He saw Maya checking every cable, every connection, her seriousness absolute. When they went downstairs, Ethan had been transformed. "Thank you," he said. "For what reason?" "For showing me what I was missing from my own life." Maya smiled, a genuine and warm expression on her face. "Maybe you're not such a complete idiot after all." Their friendship grew, but something else grew as well. Ethan found himself thinking about her at unexpected moments. The way she tied her hair back before welding, her rough laugh when he made a bad joke, her quiet strength when dealing with workers who questioned her authority. He was in love, but whenever he got too close, Maya would back away. One word too kind and she'd change the subject. One accidental touch and she'd create physical distance. Raphael's scars were deep, Ethan realized. She had built walls as solid as the structures she erected. Then Victoria returned. Ethan was in his office when she appeared, sneaking through the door as if she still had a right to that space. Victoria Mendez. Perfectly brushed blonde hair, a dress that had cost a fortune, a smile that concealed venom. "Ethan," she purred, "you don't return my calls?" "Because we broke up a year ago, Victoria. We have nothing more to talk about." "Don't be cruel." She moved closer, her expensive perfume lingering in his space. "We were good together. We can be again." "No." Ethan kept his voice firm. "You betrayed me. With my business partner, actually. Did you forget? It was a mistake. I was confused." Her hands touched his chest, all too familiar. "But now I see clearly. We belong together. We're from the same world, Ethan. We understand the rules." He pushed his hands away from her. "I don't want to live by these rules anymore." Victoria's eyes narrowed. "It's because of her, isn't it? The construction worker who's been following you around the site. Really, Ethan? A woman who smells of welding? Get out of my office." "She's going to hurt you," Victoria spat, her mask of sweetness finally slipping. "Girls like her don't understand our world. They'll take what they can and disappear. At least I was honest about what I wanted." "You were many things, Victoria." "Honest was never one of them." She stormed out in a frenzy of high heels and contained fury. Ethan sat heavily. Victoria had always been manipulative, but there was something different in her eyes this time. Something dangerous? He should have paid more attention. The project was reaching a critical point. The next 15 days would decide whether it would finish on time or be delayed, costing millions. Maya was even more focused, arriving before dawn and leaving after sunset. Ethan accompanied her whenever he could, learning to admire not only her, but the entire team that transformed drawings into reality. It was on one of those nights that it finally happened. They were alone on the construction site, the city gleaming below. Maya was checking the latest reports of the day, her brow furrowed in concentration. Ethan sat on a pile of plywood, simply observing. "You're looking at me again," Maya said without looking up. "Sorry." He didn't apologize. She finally looked at him. "I just said that he is. It's hard not to look." Ethan stood up, approaching slowly. "You're extraordinary, Maya. The way you lead this team, how you care about every detail, how you never give up." "Stop." Her voice was tense. "Don't do that." "What to do?" "Seeing me as something I'm not." Maya stepped back, hugging her own arms. "I'm just a factory worker, Ethan. I wake up at 5 in the morning, come home with my body aching, earn just enough to live. I'm not extraordinary. I'm just me. And that's not enough?" "For me, yes. For you?" She laughed humorlessly. "You'll wake up one day and realize you can have someone easier, someone who fits. And I'll be the idiot who believed again." Ethan felt his heart break. "He really destroyed you, didn't he?" "He showed me my place." The words were bitter. "Women like me don't get happy endings with men like you. That's fantasy, Ethan. In real life, Cinderella doesn't end up with the prince. She goes back to the kitchen and the prince marries someone from the castle." "What if I don't want someone from the castle?" Ethan took another step. "What if I want someone real? Someone who challenges me, who makes me better, who isn't afraid to call me an idiot when I deserve it?" Maya stared at him, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "Why do you make this so difficult?" "Because it's worth it," he extended his hand. "I'm not Raphael. I'm not going to promise you the world and then disappear. But I promise this. As long as you give me a chance, I'll prove to you that not all men are the same." For a moment it seemed she would run away. Then, slowly, her hand touched his. Small, calloused, strong. "One chance," she whispered. "Just one. That's all I need." He pulled her close, slowly, giving her time to pull back. But Maya didn't pull back. When their lips met, it was like a spark and gasoline. 4 months of tension, denial, and desire collapsing all at once. She kissed him as if she were angry with him, her hands gripping his shirt. He kissed her as if she were oxygen and he were drowning her. When they finally parted, both breathless, Maya rested her forehead against his. "I swear to God, Ethan," she said, her voice hoarse, "if you hurt me, I'll kill you." "Fair." They laughed, and for a moment everything seemed possible. What none of them saw was the figure watching from the shadows beside the flower bed. Victoria, with her cell phone in hand, photographing the moment. Her face was a mask of pure hatred. If she couldn't have Ethan, nobody could, especially not some insignificant factory worker. Her plans were already in motion, and when Victoria Mendez wanted to destroy someone, she left no stone unturned. The following days were the happiest Ethan could remember living. He and Maya kept their relationship discreet at the construction site, professional during working hours, but the nights were theirs. Simple dinners in small restaurants she loved, walks through her neighborhood so different from the luxury condominium where he lived, conversations that stretched into the early hours of the morning about dreams, fears, and everything else. Maya slowly lowered her defenses, allowing him to see the layers beneath her armor. She spoke of her mother, who had raised her alone, working 3 jobs until cancer took her when Maya was 19. About how she had learned construction because her uncle was a bricklayer and needed help. "Everyone said it wasn't a job for a woman," Maya recounted as they walked through the park near her house. "That I would get hurt, that no man would want me. But I loved it. The feeling of creating something from scratch, of seeing a building go up and knowing that my hands helped with that, it made me feel important." "You are important," Ethan said. "I know," she smiled. "It took me a while to learn, but now I know." Ethan pulled her close. "Your mother would be proud of the woman you've become." Maya stopped, looking at him with such intensity that he felt his chest tighten. "You're making it very difficult to keep my promise." "What promise?" "Not to fall in love." The words hung between them, vulnerable and courageous. Ethan touched her face, his thumb caressing her cheek. "What if I've already broken that promise?" he whispered. Then we're screwed. They laughed, but it was true. They were falling, and the ground was getting closer quickly. Victoria wasn't stupid. She knew that directly destroying Maya would draw attention. So she was subtle, planting seeds of doubt. A conversation here with the construction manager, mentioning concerns about relationships that compromise professional judgment. A comment there with the company board about potential conflicts of interest. But his masterstroke required more. It required patience. She started frequenting the construction site using the excuse that she was interested in investing in real estate and wanted to understand the construction process. As Ethan's ex-fiancée, people still treated her with respect. She observed, learned routines, and identified weaknesses. And then she found her opportunity. The east side of the 8th floor had a known electrical problem. Nothing critical, but it required attention. Maya was overseeing the repair, personally checking each connection. It was late afternoon on a Friday, most of the team already off for the weekend. Victoria waited until Maya went downstairs to get a tool. Then she acted. The temporary electrical setup was simple. A power cord feeding the work lamps and a few outlets. Victoria, wearing gloves she'd borrowed from a supply cupboard, carefully disconnected 3 critical connections, leaving them hanging precariously. Then, using a wire she'd brought, she created a bridge that would cause an overload as soon as someone switched the system on. She photographed everything before touching it, documenting the problem. Then, she photographed her findings. The narrative was ready, an improper installation that could have caused a fire, and Maya was responsible for that section. Victoria ran down the stairs, finding Maya just returning with the toolbox. "Maya," she called, her feigned concern perfectly calibrated. "Thank God I found you. I think there's something wrong with the wiring on the 8th floor. I was photographing the progress of the work when I noticed it." Maya frowned. "I just checked that. Everything was fine." "Really, because I have photos that show otherwise." Victoria showed the images on her cell phone, zooming in on the loose connections. "Look, this looks dangerous." Maya's face paled. "It wasn't like this 10 minutes ago." "Are you sure? Maybe you got distracted by other things." The venom in Victoria's voice was subtle. "I heard you and Ethan have been getting very close lately." "What are you implying?" "Nothing." Victoria put her phone away. "I just think the manager and the security team should look into this. After all, security is a priority, isn't it?" Maya climbed the stairs 2 steps at a time, Victoria following calmly behind. When they reached the 8th floor, Maya went straight to the installation. She had just touched the first cable when the system began to spark. The overload that Victoria had created reacted instantly. Sparks exploded from the distribution box. Maya jumped back, but not fast enough. A flame reached her arm, burning through her jumpsuit. "Shit!" Maya rolled on the ground, extinguishing the fire. Her left arm was red and beginning to blister. Other workers heard the commotion and rushed to the scene. The site manager, Paulo, arrived breathless. "What happened here?" Victoria was ready. "The wiring was poorly installed. I tried to warn you, but—" She let the sentence die, implying guilt without saying it outright. Paulo looked at the electrical mess, then at Maya on the floor, clutching her burned arm. "Maya, did you check this section?" "I checked. Everything was fine." Her voice was strained with pain. Someone messed with this. Who would touch this? Paulo seemed tired. "You were the only one responsible for this area." "Is she saying someone sabotaged it?" Victoria chimed in, making it seem ridiculous. "Paulo, I understand that accidents happen, but blaming others instead of taking responsibility—" "I'm not accusing anyone." Maya tried to stand up, her face contorted. "I just know it wasn't like this." But Paulo had already decided. "I'll have to report this, Maya. We need a full investigation. Until then, you're suspended." "Suspended?" "Paulo, I've worked here for 3 years. I've never had an incident. And now there's been a serious problem. Go to the hospital. Take care of that arm. I'll call you when I know more." Maya looked around, seeing the other workers averting their eyes. No one was going to defend her. No one was going to question the manager's word. She was just another worker, replaceable. "All right," she said softly, defeated. "I'll go." Victoria watched Maya descend the stairs, limping slightly, her burned arm pressed against her chest. Victoria, phase 1, she thought, now on to phase 2. Ethan was in a meeting with investors when he received the message. The number was unknown, but the content made him jump up immediately. Incident at the construction site. Maya burned, suspended for negligence. He left the meeting without explanation, driving at an illegal speed to the construction site. Paulo was in the temporary office filling out reports. "What happened?" Ethan demanded bluntly. Paulo explained, showing the photos Victoria had provided. It was clear negligence. The wiring was poorly done. Maya was responsible. "Well, where is she?" "Hospital, I suppose, or he went home." Ethan called Maya 12 times. Each call went to voicemail. He went to her apartment, a small but tidy studio in an old building. He knocked on the door for 5 minutes. Nothing. Finally, she opened up. Her arm was bandaged, her eyes red from crying. When she saw Ethan, something inside her shut down. "No," she said, "good, not now." "Maya, let me in. We can work this out. How to solve it." His voice was lifeless. "They've already decided it was my fault, and maybe it was. Maybe I really did get distracted." "You don't get distracted. I know you. You've known me for 4 months." She laughed bitterly. "Raphael knew me longer and still didn't know me. You're the same, Ethan. Just another man who is going to disappoint me." "Don't do that. Don't put me in the same box as him." "Why not? You're rich, powerful, used to getting what you want. I'm just another conquest. And now that things have gotten complicated, you're going to disappear." "That's not true." "Then answer me one thing." She stared at him defiantly. "Are you going to fight for my innocence? Are you going to go against your manager, your team, risk your company's reputation for a worker they say is negligent? Or are you going to let me go quietly, which is easier?" Ethan opened his mouth, but the words wouldn't come, because she was right. The situation was complicated. There were protocols, insurance companies, the company's image. Fighting for it would mean challenging all of that. Maya saw the hesitation on his face and smiled sadly. "I figured. Give me time. Let me investigate. I'll find out what really happened." "No need." She stepped back, already closing the door. "It was good while it lasted, Ethan, but it's over. The fantasy is over." The door closed. Ethan stood there in the dimly lit hallway, feeling his world crumble. And somewhere in the city, Victoria smiled as she received a message from one of her contacts at the construction site. Mission accomplished. They're finished. But she wasn't finished. The destruction of Maya was only just beginning. 3 days later, things got worse. The official report came out, attributing the incident to Maya's inadequate supervision. Worse, rumors began to circulate. Maya was distracted by an inappropriate relationship with the CEO. Maya was using her position to gain favors. Maya wasn't competent, just lucky. Ethan knew exactly where those rumors came from. Victoria had always been a master at destroying reputations without getting her own hands dirty, but proving it was another story. He spent the next 3 days obsessed, reviewing every inch of security footage, interviewing workers, examining site access logs. Maya didn't answer his calls or messages. She simply disappeared, as she had promised she would. It was Marcos, one of the oldest welders, who finally provided the clue. "Boss, something strange," he said, entering Ethan's office with a tablet. "On the day of the incident, the cameras on the 8th floor malfunctioned for exactly 17 minutes, right at the window where it all happened." "Technical failure?" "I don't know, but it's quite a coincidence." Marcos hesitated. "And there's something else. 2 workers said they saw his ex-girlfriend, the blonde, going up to the 8th floor shortly before the accident. But when I brought this up with Paulo, He said it wasn't relevant because she's an interested investor. Ethan's anger was almost physical. "Show me the recordings from the ground floor. I want to see everyone who went up there that day." It took 2 hours, but they found it. Victoria entered at 4:47 p.m. wearing gloves, something no visitor would wear. She went up to the 8th floor, 17 minutes of dead cameras. She came down at 5:12 p.m. without the gloves, with a satisfied smile. "That viper," Ethan muttered. "She orchestrated everything." "What are you going to do?" "Fix this." Ethan was already grabbing his coat. "And I'll start by finding Maya." It took another day to locate her. Maya wasn't in her apartment, nor was she in any of the places they frequented together. Finally, Ethan remembered a fleeting conversation where she had mentioned a place she went to when she needed to think. The cemetery was almost empty at dusk. Ethan found Maya sitting in front of a simple gravestone, Carmen Silva, beloved mother. She had her legs wrapped around her chest, her chin resting on her knees. She wasn't crying, but there was a deep sadness in her posture. "I always come here when everything goes to hell," she said, without looking at him. "My mother could make everything seem simpler. Even when the world was falling apart, she found a way to keep going." Ethan sat down beside her on the damp grass. "Would she teach you to give up?" "She would teach me to accept reality." Now Maya looked at him, her eyes dry but tired. "The reality is that I don't belong in your world, Ethan. This past week has proven that. A powerful person decides to destroy me, and in 3 days my 3-year reputation turns to dust. That's how it works, isn't it? People like me are disposable. Victoria set a trap for you. I have proof." Maya blinked, surprised. "What?" Ethan pulled out the tablet he had brought, showing the images, the timestamps, the testimonies. "She tampered with the electrical wiring, she turned off the cameras, then she waited for you to come back and staged the discovery. It was all planned." For a long moment Maya just stared at the evidence, processing it. Then she laughed, a harsh, hurt sound. "Sure, the ex-psychopath. What a cliché." Maya, "No." She stood up abruptly. "Isn't it funny? I finally let someone in, and it almost destroys me. Again. Because it's always the same, isn't it? The guy who seemed different always comes with baggage that explodes in my face. Yeah, this is not my fault. Isn't it your fault that your ex decided to destroy me? Isn't it your fault that she had access to the artwork because you were engaged to her? Isn't it your fault that I lost my job, my reputation, and almost got sued because I got involved with you?" Her voice rose, years of pain finally overflowing. "Raphael taught me not to trust. You convinced me to try again, and look where I am. Back to square one, only now with my name dragged through the mud, too." "I'll fix this," Ethan said, also standing up. "Victoria will pay. You'll go back to work. I'll clear your name." "And then what?" Maya crossed her arms. "What do we go back to being? The CEO and the factory worker who defied all odds? Until the next person from their past decides I'm a threat? Until someone from their social class reminds me of my place? You don't belong anywhere. You are Maya, strong, brilliant, amazing." "I'm tired, Ethan." The words came out as a scream. "I'm tired of fighting, tired of proving I deserve respect, tired of being tested all the time and being with you. It's just another fight I don't know if I can win." They stood there, 2 meters apart, which seemed like an abyss. The sun set behind them, painting everything in shades of orange and red. Ethan felt something break inside him. "When you're a kid and your father is never there," he began, his voice low, "you learn that love is something you have to earn. So you work harder, do more, try to be perfect, and when he dies without ever saying he was proud, you realize you were never enough. You never will be. So you stop trying. You build walls. You go out with women who don't ask for anything real, because real is dangerous." He took a step toward her. "Until some crazy woman saves me from a falling beam and then treats me like I'm just some random idiot. And for the first time in years I feel seen. Not my money, not my last name. Me. And it's scary and confusing, and I don't know what I'm doing, but I know I don't want to lose this. I don't want to lose you." Maya had tears in her eyes now. What if it's not enough? What if we hurt ourselves even more, trying to make something work that can't possibly work? So at least we tried. Ethan was in front of her now, his hands in his pockets, to resist the urge to touch her. My whole life has been about playing it safe, Maya. Calculated decisions, measured risks. And you know what that got me? An empty apartment, empty relationships, a comfortable and completely meaningless existence. He held her face, forcing her to look into his eyes. You're the first real thing that's happened to me in years. You make me want to be better, braver, more honest. If that's not reason enough to fight, then I don't know what is. You're an idiot, Maya whispered, but she was smiling through her tears. You already said that. Because it remains true. They kissed there, among tombstones and memories, while the world kept turning. It was different from their first kiss, less urgent, more of a promise, as if they were sealing a pact to never give up no matter how hard things got. When they parted, Maya rested her forehead against his. Okay, let's fix this mess. But after that, you have to promise me one thing. Anything. No more ex-psychopaths. Seriously. Enough is enough. Ethan laughed, the sound relieved and genuine. Promise. Shum, confronting Victoria required strategy. It wasn't enough to have proof. It was necessary to ensure she couldn't retaliate or destroy evidence. Ethan spent 2 days consulting lawyers, preparing a watertight case. On Wednesday morning, he called an emergency meeting at the main office of Carvalho Construções. Present were Paulo, the construction manager, Roberto, the head of security, Dr. Lucia from the legal team, and Victoria, invited under the pretext of clarifications about the incident. Victoria arrived confidently, impeccably dressed, with a polite smile. She didn't know she was walking into a trap. Thank you for coming, Ethan began, his voice cold and professional. We're here to review the incident from the 15th and the initial findings. Ethan, Victoria interrupted with feigned concern. I know you're upset about what happened to Maya, but these things, unfortunately, are part of the process. Don't interrupt me. His tone silenced her, as if to say, let's review. Paulo, could you repeat your initial conclusions? Paulo, clearly uncomfortable, consulted his papers. Electrical installation failure due to inadequate supervision by the section manager, Maya Silva. Based on what? Photos provided by Victoria Mendes showing faulty installation and the subsequent incident. I understand. Ethan nodded to Roberto. Now Roberto is going to show us something interesting. The screen behind Ethan lit up, showing footage from the ground floor. Victoria entered, wearing gloves. The timestamp was clear, 16:47. Is that you, Victoria? Ethan asked calmly. Her face remained composed. Yes, I was visiting the construction site. I already explained that. With industrial gloves? Well, you never know when you might need to touch something. Interesting. Next image. Victoria going up to the 8th floor. And here you're going exactly to the section where the incident happened at 4:52 p.m. I was exploring the building, alone, in the restricted area, where only authorized personnel are allowed. Ethan fast-forwarded the footage, and then, interestingly, the cameras on the 8th floor stopped working for 17 minutes. How convenient. Victoria crossed her legs, trying to look bored. Technical glitches happen. Not when the system was checked 3 hours earlier and was working perfectly, Roberto interjected. Someone manually disconnected the power cable, and only 4 people know where that cable is. 3 of them are in this room. Now sweat was on Victoria's brow. This is ridiculous. You're accusing me of sabotage based on what? Footage showing I was in the building? No. Ethan smiled, but it was the expression of a predator. I'm accusing you based on your fingerprints. He nodded again. Dr. Lucia placed a report on the table. The gloves you used were from the construction site, the lawyer explained. You put them back in the locker afterward, but before messing with the wiring, you took them off for a moment, probably because you needed fine dexterity to create the overload. Your fingerprints are on 3 critical connections that Maya never touched, according to recordings of her working before you arrived. Victoria's face lost all its color. Furthermore, Ethan continued, 2 employees saw you on the floor, and your cell phone connected to the construction site's Wi-Fi on the 8th floor at 5:03 p.m., exactly when you were up there. Everything is documented. Silence. Why? Paul finally asked, looking shocked. Why do this? Victoria looked around the room, seeing that there was no way out. Then something inside her shattered. Because she didn't deserve him. Her voice was sharp, hysterical. Who does she think she is? Some old, calloused, classless factory worker thinking she can have Ethan Carvalho? I built 3 years with him. I understand his world. She's nothing. You betrayed me, Ethan said softly, with my business partner in our bed. It was a mistake. I would go back. We could have fixed it. Victoria was standing now, crumbling. But you chose her. That one. Watch your next word, Ethan warned, danger in his voice. Victoria laughed, a broken sound. You 2 won't last. People like you never last. She'll realize you're as empty as I am, that your money doesn't fill the hole your father left. And you'll realize she's too small for your world. Get out, Ethan said, now, before I call the police. The police? Victoria seemed genuinely surprised. Industrial sabotage resulting in bodily injury is a crime, Dr. Lucia stated. We have more than enough evidence to prosecute. And we will. You wouldn't do that. It would become a scandal. It would tarnish your company's reputation. I don't care. Ethan was standing now, his hands pressed against the table. You hurt an innocent person because your ego couldn't handle rejection. You deliberately destroyed someone's reputation. I care more about justice than scandal. Victoria stared at them for another moment, searching for any weakness. She found none. She picked up her bag, her hands trembling. You'll regret this, she said at the door. The only one who's going to regret it is you, Roberto retorted, when you're giving your testimony. The door closed. The 4 remained silent for a moment. Wow, Paulo finally said. That was necessary. Ethan turned to him. And now you're going to correct the report. Maya Silva was not at fault in the incident. She was a victim of sabotage. I want a formal document acknowledging this and an official apology. Of course. Paulo seemed embarrassed. And what about her work? Maya decides whether she wants to return or not. But if she does return, it's with a raise and a promotion. Senior supervisor. Supervisor? Ethan, with all due respect, this is going to cause resentment. She saved my life. She worked for 3 years without a single incident before this, and she has just been proven innocent of charges that almost ended her career. Ethan's voice didn't allow for arguments. If anyone on the team has a problem with that, they can come and talk to me directly. Paulo swallowed hard and nodded. Ethan found Maya at her house that night. She opened the door wearing sweatpants and a t-shirt, her hair wet from the shower. Beautiful, in a simple, real way that made his heart ache. So, she asked. Victoria confessed. Well, sort of. She freaked out when confronted with the evidence. The police are already involved. Maya let out a long breath. My God. There's more. Paulo is going to issue an official correction. You're clean, and... He hesitated. There's a job offer, senior supervisor, a 40% raise, if you're interested. She stared at him. If I want to? After everything, I'm not going to make assumptions. If you want to work somewhere else, far away from me and all this drama, I understand. I can give you impeccable references. I know all of this was... Maya pulled him into the apartment and closed the door. You really are an idiot, aren't you? Apparently. I accept, she smiled, the promotion, the job, and you, if the offer still stands. Always. They kissed, and this time it was like coming home. Everything that had happened, all the pain and confusion seemed worth it for that moment. Just one rule, Maya murmured against his lips. No pity. At work, I'm Supervisor Silva. You're the CEO. Professionals. I earn my promotion, understand? Understood, Supervisor. And at home, she smiled, that smile that lit up her whole face. At home, you can still be my idiot. Best offer I've ever received. 2 months later, Victoria's trial was swift. The evidence was irrefutable. She was sentenced to 18 months in prison for sabotage and assault, in addition to substantial compensation to Maya for moral damages. Ethan felt no satisfaction, only relief that that chapter was finally over. The work was progressing magnificently under Maya's new supervision. The men who initially resisted her promotion quickly learned that she had earned the position through merit. She was tough, fair, and knew more about construction than most of them combined. And Ethan was learning how to truly live for the first time. Maya taught him little things he never knew mattered, like how to make coffee in an old coffee maker that made 1,000 times better coffee than his 3,000 real Italian espresso machine. How to watch the sunset without thinking about emails. How to laugh at himself. She introduced him to her world, to friends who worked hard and laughed loudly, to neighborhood restaurants where the food was simple but made with love, to a life where success wasn't measured in dollars but in moments. And he introduced her to his, but this time it was different. These weren't events where she was shown off, but intimate dinners with people who truly mattered. His mentor, who was impressed by her intelligence. His younger sister, who instantly adored Maya and declared that if Ethan messed things up, she would stay with Maya. 6 months after the incident, they stood atop the building they had constructed together. It was now complete, a beautiful structure of glass and steel that touched the sky. The sun set, painting everything in gold. You know, Maya said, leaning against the railing, I always thought happy endings were nonsense. Fairy tale stuff. And now? Now I think maybe happy endings aren't about perfection. They're about finding someone willing to fight for you, someone who truly sees you and still stays. Ethan moved closer, wrapping his arms around her from behind, his chin resting on the top of her head. I'll always stay. A dangerous promise. The only one worth doing. They remained like that while the city awoke to its nightlights. 2 worlds that shouldn't have met but fit together perfectly. A CEO who learned that true success is about connection. A factory worker who learned that not all men want to belittle you. And somewhere in between the concrete and the heart, they built something stronger than any steel structure. Real love. The kind that weathers storms and still stands. The kind that, against all odds, lasts forever. So what did you think of Maya and Ethan's story? Did you enjoy the plot twists, the characters, the emotional intensity? Rate it from 0 to 10. Your opinion matters and helps me create even better stories for you.